And a New York City man who was arrested this past summer for allegedly carrying methamphetamine is now suing the police department that arrested him. You see, there was a little bit of confusion because that crystal meth he was supposedly carrying was in fact Jolly Ranchers. That's right, the popular multi-flavored hard candies. The officer who arrested the 25-year-old African-American named Love Olatungiojo confidently said that he had professional training in the identification of methamphetamine. He also noted in the criminal affidavit that he had done a field test on the substance and determined it was indeed narcotics. The red and blue crystalline rocks of solid material were then taken to a lab for a gas chromatography analysis, and 2 days later, the earth-shattering results were in. This was not a controlled substance, but rather just candy. However, this was all after the young man was detained for over 24 hours. Olatungiojo says he underwent severe emotional trauma over the false imprisonment. Now, it's unclear at this point why he was stopped in the first place. However, officers who stopped and searched him reportedly said it was, quote, only a matter of time before they found something, leading privacy advocates to believe the officers were employing the controversial stop and frisk practice.
So, as you can see, crystal meth is not a Jolly Rancher.
Unfortunately, the NYPD seems to think it is.
You know what? We do try to add a sense of humor, and we're going to try right now. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
Talking about a serious subject of police brutality. So check this clip out.
Well, the FBI is investigating the death of a 13-year-old boy from Northern California after officers from the Santa Rosa Police Department shot and killed him. Police say Andy Lopez was carrying a pellet gun that looked like an AK-47 assault rifle and was wearing a hoodie on Tuesday when they confronted him. Witnesses told police that they heard the two sheriff's deputies order the boy to put down the gun twice. One sheriff's deputy opened fire when he thought that Lopez aimed the gun at him. Family and friends gathered today to say their final goodbyes to the middle school student. More than 1,000 people showed up, according to local news stations. A number of Andy's young supporters also held protests over the weekend to call the officers' actions into question. The sheriff's deputy who opened fire on the boy is a 20-year veteran of the Santa Rosa Police Department. Police offered their condolences to the family of Andy Lopez during a press conference, but also gave a physical demonstration of where the confusion came from. Now, the picture that you were looking at, the gun on the left is the fake one that Lopez was carrying. The one on the right is a real AK-47. The two sheriff's deputies involved in the shooting have been put on administrative leave pending an official investigation.
Okay, so this is some serious issues, and as you can see, worldwide, the police have a serious issue with control and not being able to keep it holstered.
Yeah, the police state seems to be breaking down and showing its fascist visage.
Yeah. You know, that's what happens when you get like 6 months of military training and then you're forced to deal with civilians. We know what the solution is. It's attaching a camera. And I wish we had a camera directly attached to the officer on this story.
Cops in Brazil, Indiana wanted to do a fake drug raid with 5th graders, and while they did that, they planted drugs on one 5th grade boy. Now, they had a drug-sniffing dog try to find the drugs, and in the process of doing so, the dog bit the 5th grader, who got treated for minor injuries later. Nailed it. Great lesson, by the way. Unbelievable. So Police Chief Clint McQueen says Max began searching the juveniles. The first male juvenile began moving his leg around as Max searched him. When the male began moving his legs, this is what I believe prompted Max's action to bite the male juvenile on the right calf. Okay, blame it on the juvenile. Well, he was moving his leg too much, so what are you going to do? Of course the drug-sniffing dog is going to bite.
Look, after we planted the drugs on his 5th grade ass, he started moving his legs around, so obviously he had it coming. Okay, now normally dog bites man is not a story. Okay, that's what they teach you in journalism school. Well, in this case, it's definitely a story because it goes to how ridiculous our whole war on drugs is.
Yep.
Like, we got to get the 5th graders ready, okay? You know, this is scary business, man. Here's the dog. And like, oh, sick that we didn't check if the dog was, under control. And oh, God damn it, he bit the 5th grader. Well, anyway, it was probably his fault. This particular program in Brazil, Indiana, which is an awesome name for a town, by the way.
I'm going to go to Brazil this summer.
Yeah.
Brazil, Indiana.
Little different connotation. This particular one did work. The kids now know the reality. Don't trust the cops.
So lesson learned.
Yeah, indoctrinate them young.
Yeah, and make sure that you arrest them. We're looking at stories where 6-year-olds are taken out of school for, making a Lego gun. And a cop shows up for this. This is really out of control, and people are getting fed up with it. So we're urging you to do something about it. Get in contact with us when you hear about this nonsense.
However, the war on drugs can sometimes turn really ugly. Check this story out about New Mexico.
Oh, man.
On now to an extremely disturbing case of alleged police overreach that is gaining national attention. In January, New Mexico police officers pulled over David Eckert for a routine traffic stop when he failed to yield to a stop sign. Now, according to a lawsuit filed by Eckert's attorney, the officers then asked him to get out of the car, which he complied with. However, the way that he was standing seemed suspicious to officers. Because he appeared to be clenching his buttocks, police said they believed that he was hiding drugs inside of himself. KOP TV picks up the story from there.
According to court records and medical charts, first, doctors x-rayed Eckert, then penetrated his rectum with their fingers, then performed another exam with their fingers. Doctors then gave Eckert 3 enemas and forced him to defecate in front of them while they searched his stool. All of these things done without consent, all of them finding nothing. But it didn't stop there. Doctors performed a second x-ray. Then they sedated Eckert, prepared him for surgery, and performed a colonoscopy.
Perhaps the most disturbing part of this story is that doctors came up empty-handed. No drugs were ultimately discovered. Now David Eckert is suing the Deming Police Department. The station also reported that another man, Timothy Young, experienced a similar ordeal after he was stopped for turning without a proper signal. He was reportedly pulled over by the same exact K-9 unit, taken to this Gila Regional Medical Center, and subjected to x-rays of his abdomen area and also an anal exam. And again, no drugs were found.
So that's very uncomfortable.
I mean, wow is not the word for it, okay? Seriously, these guys have to get some responsibility. It's sort of like the conservative government, though. Accountability out the door.
And they have to take a look at their medical services personnel as well.
So make sure that you keep your camera rolling. Make sure that you get informed about what your rights are, because you got a lot more rights than they assume you know about. The final story. Oh my goodness.
We must warn you, this video is hard to watch.
Check it out.
It was an afternoon in March. A security camera captures the end of a Houston police pursuit. Burglar Chad Holly was trying to make a run for it. He's clipped by a police car. On the ground, he clearly puts his arms out in the surrender pose, then folds his arms behind his head before police move in. But look what happens next. The first officer stomps on his head. He's repeatedly kicked. We count 4 officers doing the kicking. Then one officer lands 5 separate kicks. It looks like the kicks are landing on Holly's head. You'll see more kicks. Holly has been on the ground, cops on top of him, all around him, for about 20 seconds. And then another police officer lands 5 heavy punches. The officer who did the kicking in the beginning does it again, this time from behind. Then he stomps on the back of Holly's legs. Then just before Holly is picked up to be taken to a patrol car, there's another lick. 4 Houston police officers were indicted for what you've just seen on video, but on misdemeanor charges of official oppression, not assault. 12 officers were punished in the wake of the Holly case. Many of them have been given their jobs back against the city's will. Fino 13 Undercover.
Houston police officials are not saying much about the release of this video. Police Chief Charles McClellan gave us this statement, and we quote, "I have already taken disciplinary action and will have no further comment until the last case is adjudicated and or appealed."
Okay, so the charge is official oppression, not assault. It's a misdemeanor, and that's the way it goes.
And those cops will probably all keep their jobs.
Well, we want you to keep your cameras rolling. We've got one clip to finish things off right now. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
This is a crime against the people of epic proportions. So, while we get things under control and we start up our major campaigns coming up here in December, we want you to check out a little bit of injustice from the University of California.
The next U.S. law enforcement official to face off against unarmed, peaceful protesters may easily get away with brutalizing them and even be rewarded afterwards. Remember that horrifying video of a university police officer spraying pepper spray into the faces of students who were seated on the ground? Well, that man has been awarded nearly $40,000 in workman's compensation. John Pike sued the University of California, Davis, claiming he suffered from depression and anxiety that was brought on by death threats against him and his family following the 2011 incident. Last week, a judge approved the $38,059 workers' compensation award settlement between Pike and UC Davis. Now, initially, Pike was placed on paid administrative leave after pepper spraying UC Davis students during a protest in support of Occupy Wall Street. He was fired 8 months later. However, an internal university investigation concluded that he acted appropriately. Incidents of police brutality extend from the west all the way to the east coast of the United States. Last month here in New York City, police officers attacked students who were protesting a visiting professor position given to ex-CIA Director David Petraeus at CUNY, the city's official university. Protesters were punched, slammed on the ground, and 6 students were arrested, jailed, and arraigned on charges of obstruction of governmental administration, riot, resisting arrest, and disorderly conduct. However, there's been no reports of the officers involved being penalized or charged with misconduct. According to the latest confirmed figures, there are close to 1,400 federal civil rights cases pending against the New York City Police Department. Reporting from New York, Marina Portnaya, RT.
A lot of people think poverty is a problem for other people in other neighborhoods. But even if you or no one you know is ever affected by poverty, not doing anything about poverty is costing us all. British Columbia has the highest poverty rate in Canada. Not addressing this comes at a price. And this is what it looks like when we do the math. For starters, it costs us $1.2 billion per year to pay for the healthcare costs related to poverty. We've heard a lot lately about how we need to get tough on crime. But some crime could be prevented by reducing poverty, which is linked to crimes of desperation, low literacy rates, and living in unsafe situations. The poverty-related costs of crime in BC add up to $745 million per year. Then, there's the income that the poor might have earned from working if they had access to better supports and training, or the income that the working poor could have earned if their jobs paid better wages. This is also a loss to our economy, to the collective wealth of our society. And it adds up to as much as $7.3 billion per year. Altogether, it works out to between $8 and $9 billion every year. This is a terrible deal. And the worst part of this is that it would cost us between $3 and $4 billion per year to put an effective poverty reduction plan in place. That's less than half of what poverty is costing us now. You don't have to be an economist to see that it costs more to keep people in poverty than it does to fix the problem. It's just simple math. not for other people in other neighborhoods, but for all of us.